Hello, my name is Shanice Dent, and the title of my project was Increasing Miles Ran in a Week, and it was a single case study employing myself. So, just a brief literature review before we get started. Some research has evaluated the impact of self management in achieving exercise goals. Self management is a strategy used in various fields of study, especially in sports. Self management is defined as an individual's ability to monitor, control, and manage thoughts and behaviors that can contribute to goal accomplishments. I was actually reviewing a lot of my peers' work and their signature assignments, and I realized a lot of people did self management plans for exercise, so kudos to us. Surprisingly enough, there wasn't a lot of behavioral analytic research on using behavioral analytic strategies to improve exercise goals. In my case, running miles, which is interesting because, as we all know, um, exercise goals are often met with reinforcement, so a behavioral analytic principle. So to find that there was very limited research correlating self management, exercise, and behavior analysis was very surprising. But the purpose of this program was to increase miles ran in a week in a 25-year-old female, myself, and I used a self monitoring plan to set goals, manage behaviors, and provide reinforcement as appropriate. So, this was a single case study with a 25-year-old female. I am a fairly healthy 25-year-old that engages in moderate exercise activity. I eat a healthy, well balanced diet. I'm 5'5" and I weigh 202 pounds. So previously, I used to run about 4 miles a day. But my biggest challenge is consistency. So I'll go a month running 4 miles every single day, and then I'll stop for a day, and then I'll go like 2 months without exercising. So I really wanted to find a realistic exercise goal just to have more routine physical activity in my daily life. So a baseline was collected during the first week. So during baseline, I ran about 2 miles per week. So I decided to implement a self-management plan to increase running behavior. So the goal is to systematically increase the amount of miles ran per week. So a changing criterion design was used. A changing criterion design employs stepwise benchmarks for manipulating a dimension. So I found that that was the best modality um, to use to set goals and measurement in my program. Okay, so the intervention was a self-management program, and the dependent variable was miles ran in a week. So after I collected the baseline, I determined weekly goals. So performance goals were set by myself based on the baseline performance. The three stages for training were goal setting, behavior monitoring, and self-reinforcement. So first, I collected some research on goal setting and exercise performance. As I mentioned, there was very limited research on behavioral analytic research on exercise goal setting. However, there was substantial research on goal setting for exercise in general. I found that one of the most common things that people use are like SMART goals, so setting realistic and measurable goals per week. So first, I operationally defined running behavior. So it was defined as running 1 mile sorry, one running 1 mile is defined as starting and completing 1 mile while running at a pace of 13 minutes or less on a treadmill. The mile was ran consecutively. If there was a pause of more than 30 seconds, then this would no longer be considered a consecutive mile and a new onset began. So I know that I can run a mile in less than 13 minutes. So that was super important to set that measurable goal for myself because anything more than 13 minutes would have been considered to be walking. Um, so while I was running, I wore an Apple Watch, so I was fairly knowledgeable on how to use my Apple Watch. So once I started running, I pressed start, and once I pressed start, this recorded the duration of the mile. Once I pressed stop, which was the offset, the mile ended. The materials needed to collect data was just the Apple Watch, and it was worn throughout the entire exercise activity. If I didn't wear the Apple Watch, then it did not count as the activity. So my weekly reinforcement in place was Chipotle. I love Chipotle. I eat it almost every single day. So setting it as a goal for just one time a week, contingent on meeting my goals, was very difficult, but it was necessary, so that I am reinforced for my running behavior. So the goal was to increase 10% each week. So from baseline, I set a 10% increase. So that was only like 2.2 miles the second week. And then once I met a goal, I increased that goal by 10%. So if um, the second week I ran 5 miles, right? I wouldn't go based off of the original 2.02 goal. I made a new 10% goal off of the 5%. So it increased pretty drastically throughout the week. Okay, so this is the results. So as you can see, I met my goal. So the first condition was the baseline condition. So as you see, I have 2 miles graph. And then each week, if you see the horizontal dotted line, that would be the 10% criterion goal. So as you can see, each week I surpassed that goal. So week 2, I ran 5 miles. Week 3 was 7 miles. Week 4 was 7 miles. Week 5, there was a little dip, so it went back to 5 or 6 miles. Yeah, sorry, that's 6 miles. So it was right on the 10% goal, but after that it continued to increase. So there is an upward trend, little variability, and as you can see, all the goals were met. So each week I got to enjoy my Chipotle bowl. um, so personally, I would like to continue to implement this plan. The overall goal is to be running 14 miles per week consistently, so just 2 miles per day. I think that that is a realistic goal. There were some limitations to this study. So number one, baseline was only collected for 1 week. So if I were to replicate this study, I would collect baseline across maybe 2 or 3 consecutive weeks to get a better idea of where my baseline goal was. Another limitation was making Chipotle my reinforcement system. I think that it worked for the sake of this study, but moving forward, if I were to use Chipotle as a reinforcer, I'm not sure how much control I can have over that just because I'm an adult and Chipotle is right next to my job, so it's very easy to get access to that reinforcer without achieving the goal. So maybe implementing a stronger reinforcer in the future would be very helpful for this project. And then the final limitation was the 10% increase each week. I think that the 10% goal wasn't necessarily pushing myself as much as I could have. So as mentioned, right, the baseline phase, I ran 2 miles per week. So during the second phase, um, the goal would have just been 2.2 miles, right? So if my overall goal is 14 miles a week, it would have taken way too long to get to that 14 miles had I just stuck to that 10% criteria. So if I were to duplicate this study, I probably would implement a weekly mile goal that's like a rate goal. I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. So instead of saying, it will increase by 10% each week, I would say, oh, I will increase my criteria by 2 miles per week, right? So if I'm running 5 miles this week, next week I should be running 7 miles and then 9 miles and then so forth. I think that that's more realistic. But ultimately, this study was amazing. I'm glad that I met my goal, and as you can see, I surpassed my goal each week. I think that having a goal of 14 miles per week is more realistic than what I was kind of thinking of initially, because I was at a point where I was running 4 miles a day, so it's very hard to kind of go from 4 miles to 2 miles and believe that I'm still making a difference in my health. But running 2 to 3 miles a day gives me my 20 to 30 minutes of workout each day, so I am benefiting from it. So ultimately, I'm happy that my goal was met, and I plan to continue just hitting that 14 miles a week consistently. And if I want to eventually increase it, then I will go from there. Okay, here are my references, and thank you so much for watching my presentation.